Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on this Tuesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. In this second hour, a focus in full on the National Football League offseason that really circulates around all 7 teams that made it into the postseason around the AFC. And a big question or two throughout this offseason for everybody, including the AFC champs and the team that came up just short of history and that three-peat as a Super Bowl winner in Kansas City. But we'll talk Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. We'll talk Josh Allen in the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk those wild card teams as well. And then to start off our third hour DRS, the Pittsburgh Steelers in the tricky QB situation in the Steel City. Plenty to come over these next 2 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern on TEL.
It's nice to always look ahead, too, because we just finished up on the NFL season. It was great. It was glorious. The best team we've ever seen won the NFL championship, and away we go. And you can start to sort of plug some of those numbers in. And also, the befores, Ben, and the afters, right? We're sitting after the NFL season, but before a lot of things are going to take shape, like who's going to get those franchise tags, who's going to be moving in free agency, who is people going to be drafting, the combine actually coming up. So a long way to go before we get to OTA. So it's fun to say, okay, what's this team need? What's the outlook for the next season? Love to do that stuff.
Absolutely so. In DRS, when you make it to the postseason, when you get to a conference championship game, heck, even when your hunt for history in 3 consecutive Lombardi trophies comes up short, there was a lot to like and a lot to build on. But when you reach that stage and your expectation is significant football games in playoff matchups, and you do come up short, it also leaves with a lot of questions to be asked and answers that need to be had. We start with the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, the number 1 overall seed in the AFC this year, and still the reigning AFC champs for a 5th time in the 7 seasons that Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback in KC. Donnie, our questions for Kansas City entering this 2025 offseason, not Andy Reid, not Mahomes, but maybe another familiar figure as we look at the offseason outlook for KC. Tied for the second best price to win Super Bowl 60 at plus 650 alongside the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk the flock in just a little bit. Second to last pick of that opening round come late April. Only 5 draft picks in the 2025 draft, and not exactly the greatest amount of cap space as they are slightly over and in the red. But let's start with big question number 1. And that, of course, will be a familiar face in Travis Kelce, who said he is going to take all of his time this offseason to really sit back now the season has come to a close and focus on his football future. Donnie, big question number 1 to you. Will Travis Kelce be back in Kansas City in 2025?
I'll take the underdog role and say no at this point, but sometimes you do get the definitive answer right after the Super Bowl. They do like to decompress. I get that. But understand from a competitive athlete as well, you had that bad taste in your mouth. Most athletes don't like to go out that way and say, boy, that was horrible. Now, you look at his brother, actually went out that way with a team that was 10-1, careened off the rails and got hammered on a Monday night playoff game in Tampa Bay. And Kelce's like, you know what? That's enough for me. I don't know if I can come back and do this again. Then he retires and they actually win a Super Bowl. So now you probably have a little bit of buyer's remorse. Like, hey, that's probably stuck it out one more year to get back to the Super Bowl, win it, and then I could retire on my own terms. So his brother did something that many of us thought that maybe not, where it's like, you know what? The loss was so bad and stings, but sometimes your body just tells you, like, I barely made it through this season. How can I go through another year all the way through just to try to get to the Super Bowl and play that hard and risk health and harm on top of that? So for me, I look at Kelce saying, the heart of a champion wants to come back, but sometimes when you just get into that weight room, Ben, that first time and go, you know what? I just don't feel like being here in March getting ready for another season. That's what that passion leaves the body.
Yeah, and DRS, it's a really good point that you brought up as we were discussing this in the Super Bowl buildup. On that media night in New Orleans, Travis Kelce was gung-ho. Still got a lot of football left in these legs, man. Still ready to play. And there was a thought, not just from Kelce, obviously, believing in his team and organization, but from the odds makers, as the Chiefs were the favorites for Super Bowl 59, that the Chiefs would make history as the first ever three-peat champion in the Super Bowl era and would be hunting down a 4th consecutive Lombardi entering the 2025 campaign. When that falters, when that comes up short, I think it allows you a time to reset even more so than if you had reached the pinnacle once again. And for Travis Kelce, it's not just his football life. at the age of 35, has spent 12 years in the NFL, all in KC. Still at a Pro Bowl level, but not quite the all-pro that he was, DRS, for 6 consecutive seasons, I believe from 2017 through 2022. He is still Mahomes' top target. I think I've said this a few times. 133 targets to lead the Chiefs this year. Nobody else on the roster even got to the century mark. He is still playing at a very high level. Is it the elite level that Travis Kelce had seen throughout the prime of his career? No. Can he still be a productive contributor? Absolutely. But it's not just football. It's everything else that Travis Kelce has in his life. A media darling who could sign the biggest TV deal maybe ever, much like his brother Jason, or just focus on his own podcast and still make a ton of money. And, of course, a very, very famous significant other. He could ride Swift's coattails as long as he would like, DRS, and take a few years from getting his body banged up and playing football if he wanted. Ultimately, I believe Travis Kelce returns to the NFL and, of course, Kansas City in 2025, but I would not be shocked by any means if he did decide to hang it up.
No, and also take a look at what the future could entail. You tell me you're going to call up Netflix and have a 10-part episode on, you know what, follow me around in the offseason where I retired with me and Taylor Swift, which we're probably going to get engaged. What that's worth on the open market at this point. He has so many avenues that, again, I always talk about the players in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, I'm going to play my 15th year because I'm only making $300,000. That's the rest of my life. And I can barely walk when Kelce walks away from the game and makes exorbitantly more money than he does today. Those challenges fight with you. Why go take part? Hey, well, I would love to hang around for a Super Bowl. He's got multiple Super Bowls. He's the best tight end in the history of the sport and is going to walk away to more money. It sounds like a lot harder decision than in the past. It's I have to play because I have to keep winning because I need to keep playing for a paycheck. He doesn't need that.
I don't believe Travis Kelce's status is Kansas City's biggest question of this offseason. Number 2, I think, is really where we can start. It's the offensive line and how KC should try to address that this offseason. That starts in the NFL draft come late April. Number 2, where should they look with their first-round pick?
Luxury position, right? 31st pick here. Don't complicate it. Just take the best player. If it's a tailback, you take him. A tight end, you take him. A wide receiver, you take him. A cornerback. That's what you have because it's never a bad pick there because you're going to get leftovers for a guy that was supposed to get drafted in the teens, but so many people ahead of them saying, you know what? I got to have a guard. I got to have a center. I got to have a left tackle. We got to improve positions because we're bad. Just take the luxury pick, whatever it might be, and I wouldn't mind it. Another speedy wide receiver to come back with Shee Rice next year and also Xavier Worthy in the mix. I don't mind it. Just take that luxury and maybe it's on offense.
For me, DRS, I think this offensive tackle class at the left side is good enough for Kansas City to find somebody with some value late in that opening round. There's probably going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 offensive linemen drafted in the opening round, as there often are. To me, that should be a priority for KC. We saw them rebuild that O-line after their last Super Bowl loss to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, after they got absolutely housed by Vic Fangio and a 4-man pressure in Super Bowl 59. To me, that is their main priority once again. I don't think they have the left side tackle, their blind side blocker for Mahomes on the roster right now. I think they go and try to get him in the opening round of this NFL draft. That, to me, is the main priority for KC overall, draft, free agency, trade, or otherwise this offseason.
By the way, quickly, their home schedule next year, remove the division rivals, Ben. Ravens, Lions, Texans, Eagles, Commanders, and Colts. They're going to need some help next year. That schedule, goodness, man. Woo.
Never easy when you are Kansas City. Not the reigning Super Bowl champs, but still the reigning AFC winners. How about the team they lost to, the Buffalo Bills? Next. The two teams that played in the AFC Championship game, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. And despite Buffalo outgaining KC in Arrowhead and winning the turnover battle, the Bills still came up short against their playoff nemesis. For a 4th time in the last 5 years, the Buffalo Bills ousted from postseason consideration by Kansas City. Will 2025 be different? Will Buffalo finally stand atop the AFC and get back to a Super Bowl for the first time in more than 3 decades? That, of course, will be the question this offseason in Western New York, and how the Bills plan to address it. A 13-4 team that won the AFC East for a 5th consecutive year. Plus 750, the price on the Bills to win Super Bowl 60. 4th shortest number, but a full dollar behind both KC and Baltimore for what would be the best odds for any AFC teams. 30th overall pick to end out the opening round. 8 overall draft picks, and again, slightly in the red and over the cap, about $14 million. Big questions for Buffalo, DRS. Number one, should they try to swing big in the trade market and acquire a superstar?
Yeah, you're right in that window right now for a Super Bowl with arguably the best quarterback in the game. You could say in Josh Allen, maybe the most talented overall. You're also looking at where they were hoping to swing big in the past. Don't you remember those rumors like, you know what, we'll pass on Christian McCaffrey. It's no big deal. It's just a running back at this point. Imagine McCaffrey with Allen just a few short years ago when he was healthy and saw what he did for the 49ers. So I do think that goes in the back. Now, they did say, okay, we can't beat Patrick Mahomes. Let's go get Von Miller. And it didn't work out in spades for them, let's just say. Quality signing, injured a lot, spent a lot of money. Wasn't worth it on the back end because why? You didn't accomplish your goal by getting to the Super Bowl. But that shouldn't stop you from heading into the 2025 season. Say, we are so close. What do we need? How did the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely crunch the Kansas City Chiefs? It's with a great pass rush. And swinging for the fences, which means Myles Garrett should be target number one. Now, also when we're taking a look at, are you buying on them? I just talked about the Kansas City Chiefs, Ben, with their home schedule next year, which is tough. And also, you look at the Bills' schedule, it is. But the weight of the games that you need to win and hard to win, as we like to say, are on the road. They have such a manageable road schedule next year, Ben. Falcons, Panthers, Browns, Texans, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, and Steelers are their road games there. If you can handle your business on the road and then still have a great winning percentage at home, that sets you up for that number one overall seed, which, again, no guarantees that you make it to the Super Bowl, but your path to victory going through Buffalo is much easier at home than it is away. And if you're adding players like Myles Garrett, just to say, you know what, we might not have the best secondary or the best linebackers, but our front four could be one of the best in football. Boy, that is a recipe for success. So, yes, swing for the fence in free agency, and that home run hitter, it's Myles Garrett.
Yes, for sure. Free agency, trade market, do what you need to do. Cleveland wants 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Sure. They want 3. Sure. Do what needs to be done, Brandon Beane. And I do think there is a chance that Buffalo sees a drastic improvement. Myles Garrett would be a guy to move the market, to make Buffalo a little bit closer to Kansas City and Baltimore. If not, at some point this offseason, become the AFC title favorites entering next year. Because, Donnie, the question for Buffalo is not, how do we keep winning the AFC East? How do we keep winning a few playoff games each and every year? It is directly looking at one franchise and one guy. How do we beat Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes to get to a Super Bowl? If Mahomes never existed, if the Chiefs dynasty did not exist, Buffalo probably has multiple Lombardi trophies with Josh Allen at this moment. But it's not that easy. You are a prisoner of your circumstance, and Buffalo is still trying to get that playoff monkey off its back, and that, of course, is the Chiefs. So that's a yes. They should swing big in the trade market or this offseason. Question number 2, do the Bills need an elite wide receiver to take that step as well this offseason?
Everybody needs one, but also you have to understand you can't just grow one out of a tree. It's like, hey, look, fantastic, a wideout's coming to town. Like the best guy on the market, which we thought was going to be T. Higgins, that would get a ton of money, looks like he's going to be franchise tagged. So it's not as if you could just go out and say, you know what, A.J. Brown is upset in Philadelphia, let's go pry him loose. Everybody would love that. But if they don't, what they need is competency. And again, I do give their front office credit. When they got Amari Cooper, what were we saying, Ben? Like, you know what? Good move here, rebirth, and, he's playing with a great quarterback. It just didn't work out. Keon Coleman drafted higher in the draft. Didn't work out in his rookie year. Maybe he takes that next step. We love Khalil Shakir, and we love the tight ends that they have, and certainly the wonderful quarterback that is Josh Allen. They don't need the number one wide receiver, because I'm saying that because I just don't think it's available out there. Like, does Devontae Adams shake loose from the Jets and come there? Or is that the same thing we're talking about as we just saw last year, with Amari Cooper? So for me, it's not a necessity. It would be a luxury for that to happen, but I just need basically Keon Coleman to step up and be that 1-2 punch with Khalil Shakir in the slot.
Completely agree, DRS. Is it a necessity? I would say no. Would it obviously be a huge plus and benefit? Without zero doubt. There are not many elite wide receivers, assuming that T. Higgins goes back to Cincinnati, either on that extension or at least giving Cincy the leg up through the franchise tag. Keenan Allen, a veteran. Would Stephon Diggs, a free agent, make his way back to Buffalo? Amari Cooper is a free agent. Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin, but I think the Bucs will probably look to bring Godwin back this year as well and have that leg up an advantage in doing so. Again, not a necessity. Obviously would be a point of emphasis perhaps and a big swing for Buffalo. I think if they're going to make a big swing, it's trade market, it's Myles Garrett. Does Cooper Kupp do that much if you were to trade for the veteran wide receiver? I'm not so sure. But Donnie, that is the point, right, for the Bills. Can they finally take that leap in 2025? It will be the same question. More than likely, Buffalo will win 10, 11, 12 games. More than likely, Buffalo is going to win the AFC East. More than likely, Buffalo is going to win its opening round game, even if that is the divisional round. But if they see Kansas City, did they do enough this offseason to finally move past the Chiefs? To me, that will be the outstanding question and the big question for Buffalo until the answer is something different than no.
Yeah, and also I like their schedule, which the schedule is half the battle. And also keep in mind last year, Ben, the NFC, what did they get? The benefit of the 9th home game. The AFC gets that favor this year. So you're looking at teams like the Buffalo Bills getting that extra home game. Maybe that plays into it because you want to get that top seed at home for the rest for the playoffs. We'll see if they can do that. Maybe if they add some extra players, that helps them along their path.
The odds market expects more out of Baltimore than it does Buffalo. The Flock next. In 7 years with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback, the Chiefs have won the AFC Championship 5 times. They will be the reigning AFC champs entering next season on this side of the National Football League. Who did the Chiefs beat in said AFC title game? The Buffalo Bills. So you would think the Bills probably have the next best price outside of Kansas City. You would be incorrect at this stage of the 2025 NFL offseason from those teams around the AFC to win Super Bowl 60. In fact, the Chiefs don't even have the best price by themselves. They have the second best number behind Philadelphia alongside the Baltimore Ravens, both the Chiefs and the Flock at plus 650 to win Super Bowl 60. 12-5, the record for the Ravens, second consecutive AFC North divisional crown. 27th overall pick for the Ravens, 7 total draft picks in the 2025 NFL Draft, $6 million of cap space. DRS, here the Ravens are. Once again, losing in the divisional round on the road in Buffalo. A great game that came down to a drop 2-point conversion as the Flock tried to battle its way back. And yet the odds makers still have a higher expectation for the Ravens than even that of Buffalo. Big question number 1. Understanding the lack of relative success Lamar Jackson has had during his tenure in the NFL, is an early playoff exit now the expectation? AKA, for some further clarification, are we done even thinking the Ravens could win an AFC championship at this stage?
I'm not. They're hard to quit because, when you lace them up to start the season, they're always in your conversation. Like, do you ever look at the Ravens while Lamar Jackson's healthy entering into the season and paid going, you know what? I just think this is the year they go under 500. Like, we champion like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, just get a game. No, we have championship aspirations for a team that hasn't won a championship in quite some time. What was the last season? 2012. So we're going on approaching that 15th year anniversary coming up sooner than later. But I just look at the regular season and say, okay, outside of catastrophic injury and Lamar Jackson is okay at quarterback, they're going to win double digits, which is what they do. 10-6, 14-2, 11-5. The one down year in 2021, 8 of 9. Then right back to 10-7, 13-4, and 12-5. It's what they do. They're going to win double digits. They're going to challenge for that division championship. They're going to make the playoffs. And it's one of those teams that even though they haven't had success in playoffs, meaning getting to a Super Bowl with Lamar and winning it, you're still looking at them as a team that can go anywhere and win. Look at the price points. If they played the Buffalo Bills there, close in spread, where I think, did they close as a favorite against the Buffalo Bills or darn near close to it, a 1 or 2 point spread either direction? They probably would have had that same spread in Kansas City, which shows the amount of respect that they get. And it's not just a number that you pull out of a hat. They're that good on a game-to-game basis. They just not been able to get over the top. But as I said to start the conversation, I can't quit them. I expect them to be in the playoffs and doing damage, even though they haven't done that over the past couple of years.
A 3-5 playoff record, for Lamar Jackson, with only one AFC Championship game appearance to show for it. 2 years ago now, at home against Kansas City as a favorite, the Chiefs won outright in the Charm City. Donnie could win it all, could win the AFC and represent that conference in a Super Bowl. Sure. Will me expecting them to? No, not until I see something change. And again, Lamar Jackson has been one of the issues. Not Mark Andrews in a couple of critical drops, but Lamar Jackson in the biggest stages, playing games that he does not play in the regular season. Turnover prone when he often takes care of the football at the highest degree throughout a regular season. The talent is there. The coaching is there. The consistency is there. The congruency is there. And for whatever reason, in the most significant of moments, the worst performances come out. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. I don't know the psyche. I don't know the mentality. I don't know the schemes. I don't know the performances, except on what we have seen and what the numbers tell us. I think there is reason to be cautious, DRS, of the Baltimore Ravens. If you wanted to say that Kansas City was the favorite to win the AFC, about $1 in front of Buffalo, and the Ravens were backed by $3 with the third best number, sure, a sprinkle on Baltimore. But as the co-favorites, at least right now, to win the AFC based on Super Bowl prices, not for me.
But it just feels like their regular season is foolproof. Like, you can't win a Super Bowl unless you actually get to the playoffs. And it seems like one of the most clean runs you can have every year. Again, barring catastrophic injury, is the Ravens will be beating teams down and quality opponents all season long on their way to double-digit victories. And you say to yourself, okay, we're going to roll the dice once again to the playoffs. Sooner than later, Lamar is going to come up big, even though he hasn't come up big. So buyer beware, as we like to say. And I'm going to beware, and I'm going to buy, and I'm probably going to lose my money again on the Ravens.
You need to be in the position to be in position. I understand it. More on the Ravens and elsewhere in the AFC next. The offseason outlook for all 7 teams that made the AFC postseason continues here in this second hour. We're discussing the Baltimore Ravens at this moment, DRS, and you made a good point. The Ravens under John Harbaugh, with Lamar Jackson as their starting quarterback, continue to be in the best positions. A playoff team with the opportunity to change the narrative of lack of success, not a narrative, the proven resume that has been unsuccessful in the biggest playoff spots in the last 5-6 years in the Charm City. I would just say this. I think the Chiefs' path through the AFC West, the Bills' path through the AFC East is much more favorable than that path for the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North if the Bengals do bring everybody back and if Joe Burrow continues to remain healthy. I'm not saying the Ravens are going to miss the playoffs. Baltimore is going to be there. But this is a postseason conversation where Baltimore has continued to falter with this very same cast and crew year over year, not because of some flukes or because of one opponent, because Lamar Jackson has not played his best in those spots.
Yes, and that's always going to. Doesn't it come down to the quarterback? Like the schedules that are upheld this year, which we talked about, who's going to have tough home and away. But it always ends up with one thing. You have to beat Patrick Mahomes in the biggest moments to get there, and nobody seems to be able to do that. And you pointed out rightfully so. Remove Mahomes from the situation. Hey, Lamar's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Josh Allen finally gets over the hump and wins his first Super Bowl. It's hard to do that unless you get them out of the way. But when we keep bringing up like Lamar Jackson, I always like to give the benefit of the doubt because you see greatness in Lamar Jackson's game. Multi-time MVP, could have won it again this year, but it just hasn't worked out once they got to the playoffs. But I'm willing to say, like, as long as he's healthy and they're in a football game, I'm past the, hey, he's a rookie, doesn't know how to pass the football. Look at his passing statistics over the past guy. He is a wonderful passer. It just hasn't worked out. And yes, you are right, Ben. Goes on the road to Buffalo, fumbles the football, throws an interception. But also at the end of the game, I'm throwing dimes all over the place to Mark Andrews, and he's either catching and fumbling or just not catching them at all. Sometimes you need your team to pick you up. And it seems like the Baltimore Ravens never can pick up Lamar Jackson when he's somewhat off and just play a more complete game around him. Maybe that changes. Maybe it doesn't.
Lamar Jackson has won 2 NFL MVP awards in his 6 years beginning the season as a starting quarterback for the Ravens, and had even his best year statistically this season and came up short because of that narrative perhaps and finishing runner-up to Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson's performances throughout the regular season, not my issue. Lamar Jackson's performances in the playoffs, needs to get better consistently throughout the entirety of a game for Baltimore to make a difference. One final big question for the Ravens, DRS. We can make this rather quick. Ronnie Stanley, one of the key free agents for the Ravens this offseason. Lamar's blindside blocker, the left tackle, who was a Pro Bowler this year after a few seasons where he wasn't fully healthy, played all 17 games this regular season for the Flock. Now, Friezo asked the question, our producer, like this: do they give Ronnie Stanley a blank check? I'm not so sure that's the way to phrase it, but should they make a point of emphasis to bring Stanley back this offseason because he is a free agent?
Of course you should. I mean, you want to keep that offensive line intact. It's a proven fact that if you keep your offensive line intact year over year, those guys work well together. They understand the communication and also the faults that they can cover up for. Maybe my guard can't pull this way. I can't do this. So it does make some sense. But there are salary cap restraints as saying, like, yes, let's just make him the highest paid left tackle in football. I don't know if you can do that, but there are ways around it. There's salary caps where you can say, okay, I'm going to tag, I'm going to transition tag, go out and shop for your deal. But the one thing I think you can ask Lamar Jackson, would he like Ronnie Stanley back? Of course he would.
Of course, it's also huge to have Derrick Henry back, not just to protect Lamar Jackson, but to instill what was a gruesome ground game this year, one of the best in the National Football League. If Stanley were to walk, Kansas City's like, hey, we'll pay whatever. We'll find some deal in this whatsoever to get Ronnie Stanley in there, who did restructure his deal entering the 2024 season, as smart teams do, to make it a little bit more cap hit responsible, cap hit favorable, and pay some more bonuses up front to Ronnie Stanley. Let's go from the AFC North to the champions of the AFC South for a second consecutive year, the Houston Texans. But it wasn't an overly promising season, DRS, for Houston, because the expectation entering 2024 wasn't win the AFC South. They were expected to, a minus money favorite to get that done. But could they challenge the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens as one of those true contenders in the AFC? They did win a playoff game in the opening round, but they went to Kansas City as nearly a double-digit favorite, and based on the closing number, slightly covered, but in a game that wasn't all that competitive. 10-7 record for the Texans. More than likely going to be booked as a minus money favorite to win the AFC South entering this year. The biggest change for the Texans now entering year number 3 of the DeMeco Ryans' tenure with C.J. Stroud at the quarterback spot as a new offensive coordinator. Nick Caley comes over after a few years working under Sean McVay in L.A. Bobby Slowick was shown the door. So big question number 1, did the Texans make the right move getting rid of Bobby Slowick?
I'm going to say yes, because I do think at this point, there was just a couple years ago, Ben, that was not a healthy franchise. Everything they did looked like it was backwards. Nothing was working out. But I do think they've moved forward because of the hiring of DeMeco Ryans as your head coach. He has major input in this. And if you think DeMeco Ryans says, you know what, I think we took a step back on offense here. I think we can be better. I'm getting feedback from my players. This is the right move. I'm going to trust in that, because a couple years ago, I went like, what do you mean you're getting rid of Bobby Slowick? This guy was the next hottest candidate to be a head coach. Now all of a sudden he's not good enough for you at this point. And maybe Slowick goes to Miami as the passing game coordinator, rebuilds his career and comes back. But for me, I'm not looking at it as a detriment. There's a reason they moved on. I'm going to trust DeMeco Ryans thinks that's best for his football team, for them to get a new offensive coordinator, because the one thing is clear. The offense wasn't as smooth as the year before, but understand this too. Tank Dell goes down with a catastrophic injury. Nico Collins missed so much of the season with a hamstring injury. And Stephon Diggs, your big offseason acquisition to come over and be that veteran number 2/1A to Nico Collins, he gets injured as well. So there were a lot of things that went against the Houston Texans this year. But if they feel it was a need to move on from Slowick, I'll trust them right now. I will.
C.J. Stroud was not nearly as good in his sensational rookie season. Was it a sophomore slump? Did the NFL learn the book on Stroud? Maybe. Was his offensive line awful? Yeah, that's priority number 1 in my estimation for the Texans this season. But even with all of this, DRS, maybe faltering slightly or disappointing slightly on some of those optimistic offseason expectations entering 2024, still think the Texans are going to be the favorites in the AFC South to win the division for a 3rd straight year. But what exactly is that price? Is it minus 150? Is it closer to even money? Are they still the shortest price team, but at a plus 150 price where Jacksonville and Liam Cohen aren't all that far behind? What do you believe the Texans' AFC South number will be entering 2025 when the divisional markets become available?
I mean, they're going to come out as the favorite. I don't know what that's going to be because me as the handicapper goes, okay, I'm really not trusting what Tennessee is going to do next year, still in a rebuild mode. I look at Indianapolis. They're trying to figure out their quarterback. Maybe they get it together there with Richardson. But I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and figure that they come into training camp healthy with a new outlook on offense, and they add some pieces there. They're really going to change Houston. Now, if you would have told me, Ben, hey, look at the way Houston ended the season last year. They knocked off Kansas City. Maybe they made it to the AFC Championship game and lost, but everybody was healthy. As we said, you have two catastrophic injuries at the wide receiver position that you can't just make phone calls like, hey, let's get T. Higgins in here. They're hard to replicate those moves. I like the trajectory of that organization, but I'm not as high this year, Ben, as I was last year on the Houston Texans.
I think it will be close to even money, that specific AFC South price. I think it probably trickles into minus money just based on pedigree in the relative lack of strength around the AFC South. Donnie, I think both of us expect Liam Cohen to unlock Trevor Lawrence and a rather talented Jacksonville roster, that they can challenge Houston in the division. But the Colts, the Titans, for sure not. And so I do believe the Texans will be minus 125, perhaps to be that AFC South divisional favorite entering 2025. The Texans did not maybe match the highest of expectations, but they still won a division and won a playoff game for a second consecutive year as a home dog. Do we have some playoff questions about Justin Herbert? Chargers next. Now let's get to the wild card teams from 2024 around the AFC. And Donnie, although it was a disappointing effort out of the Chargers in their wild card round game in Houston, I think overall year number one for Jim Harbaugh to come to Los Angeles and bring the Bolts to the postseason and 11 regular season wins, wildly successful. However, faltering in that playoff spot in the performance that Justin Herbert had, throwing more interceptions in that single game than he did the entirety of the regular season, just 3, a couple of questions. 32-1, the price on the Bolts to win Super Bowl 60. They're not going to be the favorites in the AFC West. That, of course, will be Kansas City until changed otherwise. But $63 million of cap space, 22nd overall pick, 8 total draft selections in 2025. The Chargers can certainly make some moves. So question number one for LA this offseason, where on offense should the Bolts invest that money?
Wide out, and more wide outs here. I love the offensive line. Got 2 big tackles out here ready to take them into the next millennium over the next 5 years. You also take a look at the running back position. You could get some upgrades, but it's wide receiver. You hit a home run last year in Ladd McConkey, one of the better young slot wide receivers here. He looks like he's Cooper Kupp reincarnated back in his prime, which is fantastic. That is one of the toughest positions in football to cover, which means you should be eating on the outside. Not have a guy like Quentin Johnston who can't catch a football. It's 50-50 at best that the ball hits him in the hands or in the face while he's wide open. You need to have competent wide receivers on the outside that can actually get open in order to push Justin Herbert, allow him to throw that football downfield. That's what I need. If you just told me, like in hockey, like, hey, you just got to load up on goalies until you get one. Draft 7 goalies every single year till you find one. Continue to draft wideouts because that's when this offense is really going to take off. That's all I need to see. Competent wide receivers to go along with McConkey, and we got something here.
Because on the offense, they're pretty good. It's how Greg Roman and largely Jim Harbaugh built this Bolts team. It's why they drafted Joe Alt. It's why they did not go after a wide receiver early in the opening round in 2024. The bookends of their line, Rashawn Slater, first-round pick out of Northwestern in 2021, pretty darn good. A Pro Bowler this year, back healthy and playing in 15 games. Joe Alt on the other side, a darn good rookie season with only more growth expected. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. He was great with the Chargers this year in 2024. We'll see if he remains in 2025. Of course, the familiarity with Roman in the Harbaugh name from his days in Baltimore. But Donnie's spot on. On offense, it's receiver, and then another receiver, and then potentially another receiver to help out Justin Herbert. Ladd McConkey was basically his only guy in that AFC wildcard game against Houston. Donnie, Justin Herbert does not necessarily have the playoff track record of Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, certainly not Patrick Mahomes, not even Joe Burrow. Only 2 wildcard games, but both were rather embarrassing. The loss in Jacksonville now in 2022 when the Chargers led 27-zip in the opening half and saw one of the largest halftime lead, or one of the largest opening half leads, just playoff leads in general, evaporate. And that drastic comeback for Jacksonville was tough. Not all on Herbert, probably more on Brandon Staley, why he is no longer the head coach in L.A. This one against the Texans, though, not a good look to throw more INTs in one playoff game than you did in the entirety of the regular season. So that's the question for L.A. Where is there room for improvement? Donnie, question number 2 for the Bolts this offseason. How far are the Chargers from the top of the AFC?
They're not far off. They really aren't. Now, granted, you do have some superstar talent. If we're just talking AFC West, of course, you're going to have to overcome the Kansas City Chiefs, and then, of course, the Denver Broncos. Then you go back out east. You look at that entire AFC North. It's tough to deal with at that point. The Buffalo Bills, we understand. And also teams improving on a year-to-year basis where, let's just say, the Miami Dolphins will come from. But I like the shell of this team. I love the head coach. I love the quarterback. I just need wide receivers. Like, when you watch this team play, they're always going to be equipped to win. And you're right. It was an anomaly where, hey, the great thing about this Chargers team is, sure, they're not letting Justin Herbert just throw it all over the lot. But, boy, when he makes plays, he makes smart decisions. And you're always going to be in football games when you don't turn it over. Case in point, the Philadelphia Eagles run through the playoffs, having, 10 turnovers go their direction, 1 to the opposite way. You're going to win a lot to have all of a sudden implode in game number 1 on the road, fresh over performance a few years ago where you imploded against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I love the coaching staff. I think they'll get it right. And the fact that they came in instead of saying, let's just run this back with the talent that we have. You saw the house cleaning here. Let me get my guys in the building. It was successful because you made it to the playoffs. I'm looking for the next step. I'm not looking for the Chargers like, hey, step back this year, no big deal. No, I'm looking for them to make the playoffs and get a win or more this year in the playoffs.
Jim Harbaugh is a program/franchise builder. Wherever he has been, at every level, he has been a collegiate or now professional head coach. FCS San Diego, great. Brought back a dormant Stanford program at the FBS level. Reinvigorated his alma mater at Michigan, of course, ending with a national championship. In the NFL, immediate success in San Francisco with the 49ers. And much the same here with the Chargers. Are they going to win the AFC West this year? No. Can they challenge the Chiefs even more so? Yes. Are they going to be a minus money favorite to make the postseason? More than likely. Donnie, that's not what the Chargers were entering this year. Win total of 8.5. And we went all around the AFC with how many quality teams there were entering 2024. And most of those remain. The Chargers weren't one of those favorites to get into the postseason. We looked at teams like the Dolphins, and the Jets, and the Bengals, the Steelers, heck, even the Browns at times in front of the Chargers. And that's where LA exceeded expectation. But once you exceed expectation, that ceiling rises, and you need to make sure you continue to live up to what that is going to be season over season.
And also spending wisely. You saw $60+ million in cap space. Most would say, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Again, it's not a great free agent market where it's like I have 5 top wide receivers we can go after. You don't want to waste that money, reinvest in the team itself. But I just trust Harbaugh's vision of what he wants to do, and I'll be fine with Everett's decision he makes, which includes maybe not getting a number 1. But I do want to see them in the draft. Hey, man, just keep taking flyers, because the one thing we understand is you can't just make Quentin Johnston be a great wide receiver. You either catch the ball or you can't.
The other AFC West wildcard team, Broncos, next. Ending out this second hour as we continue our offseason outlook for all 7 teams that made the AFC postseason. 6 in this hour to start hour 3. The big question for the Pittsburgh Steelers, perhaps the only playoff team, at least certainly in the AFC, is going to have a different starting quarterback entering 2025 than they did in 2024 at either stage, either to start the season or throughout the year as well. For the Denver Broncos, DRS, you know that quarterback, Bo Nix, after a sensational rookie year under the guidance of Sean Payton, learning in the fire and coming out on the other side, there should be a lot of reason for mile-high optimism entering 2025. A 10-7 record for Denver with a preseason win total of 5.5. 48-1 now the price to win Super Bowl 60. 20th overall pick. Some good draft capital and $34 million about of cap space this offseason. But, of course, when you have a rookie quarterback perform the way that Bo Nix did, that will be the focus of the offseason, building around that QB spot. Donnie, big question number one. Is Bo Nix more likely to regress or improve in 2025?
I'm going to say improve. And yes, regression sometimes in a sophomore slump does happen because I like to say defensive coordinators are pretty smart creatures out here. They're going to have all offseason to find out what you did really well during the whole season and what they're going to try to take away. But understand this too. The Denver Broncos aren't a ready-made product. This was a team that was supposed to be losing in the salary cap dump that they had with Russell Wilson. And now, as you saw, over $30 million to play with, which brings me to my next question for Bo Nix is, how is he going to regress when I think the weapons around him are going to be so much better? Like, just talk about, like, let's just say where we're going in the draft. Let's just say the first-round pick is Ashton Jeanty. Boop, running game fixed right off the bat. You still have a number one, or what you figure can be your number one in Cortland Sutton, a great veteran guy. Let's just say you add another wide receiver, a tight end here. You have the skeletons, I should say, of a very good football team. You just have to fill it in now. And Bo Nix, we played a lot of college football. We saw that, really benefited from that, and came right into the league where Sean Payton didn't baby him, Ben. This wasn't like, hey, man, game managed. Let's hand the football off. You're not going to throw more than 15 times, and then we'll see if we can add more to your plate late in the season. This guy was slinging it from day number one, day number two, not having all that much success early, but Sean Payton understood this was not about actually making the playoffs this year. This wasn't about being an ultra-competitive team. It was, let me find my quarterback and baptism by fire, and it worked out in his favor. So if I'm going to say that offense could have more weapons, I don't think Bo Nix is taking a step back. I really don't.
I don't either. Listen, I would lean more with improvement as well. The sophomore slump, I don't expect it for Bo Nix. And he has one of the brightest offensive minds still guiding him in Sean Payton that we have seen in the National Football League in the last 2.5, 3 decades in Sean Payton, who did say, hey, Bo, go out there, kid. Take a couple of lumps. First 2 games for Bo Nix, multiple interceptions in both without a single touchdown toss. Now, he had a couple of rookie moments throughout the remainder of 2024, but 29 touchdowns to 8 INTs in the final 15 games for Denver, as opposed to 0 touchdowns to 4 picks in the opening 2. I think Denver should be optimistic, but how much optimism in what is expectation? Back-to-back playoff berths? Or could, Donnie, big question number 2, could the Broncos actually win the AFC West?
I don't think so yet, because I still always am going to give that nod. If we look like the pecking order, right, the Raiders are so far down you can't even see them at the bottom. But if we're talking about top, it's still the Kansas City Chiefs. But I do think the Chargers have a slight leg up on the Denver Broncos right now. But that margin for error is close between those two teams. Could it happen? I guess it could. But are we talking about outside of catastrophic injury? Hey, Mahomes plays the whole year. And they really good enough to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs on the length of a season and not have those down spurts where you still have a young quarterback you're hoping for? I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think it's this year, but if they just stay on that same, look, a Super Bowl winning coach, they have a quarterback they figure is going to be young and be there for at least the next decade, improving that roster on a year-to-year basis. Why not? They were way ahead of schedule last year. I don't think that schedule jump is going to be as big as it was last year, but still be competitive enough to be in the playoffs? Absolutely.
No, I do not believe the Denver Broncos are going to win the AFC West. A playoff team, sure, that should be the expectation. Now, it's really the same way I feel about the Chargers. And it's easy to say, well, until I see it change, I don't expect that to be the case. The Chiefs have won the AFC West 9 consecutive years. They have been dominant in this division against the very teams, and for a lot of it, the same faces they are going to see in 2025. So the Chiefs still going to win the AFC West. Chargers and the Broncos, though, factor into that playoff conversation. Hour 3 up next. Live right here on the early line, we welcome you to hour number 3 on this Tuesday. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. One more hour to go on the SportsGrid network. We round out our offseason outlook for the 7 AFC playoff teams from a season ago by hearing from you about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the age-old question, the quarterback position in the Steel City this offseason. Then we'll talk to Keith Stewart about some notable news around the PGA Tour. A TGL triple header last night, of course, get you ready for a new week in the world of golf, and a huge Tuesday night slate in college basketball, as they often are. Fewer than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday. John Rothstein will join the show later on in this third and final hour. DRS, a lot to get to. Can't wait for your college basketball best bet of this Tuesday as well.
Let's go. Let's have some fun, getting in the swing of things, ironing some things out. And by the way, could my best bet be a game itself, or maybe a guy lining up 3-point shots, or could it be maybe a player prop of 16.5 points? Could we be looking at like let's just say a dentist as a head coach somewhere in that environment? You never know, Ben. You never know where we're going tonight. See that?
I know, but I'm not going to spoil it, I think, just based off those context clues. All right, DRS. We talked about in our second hour the offseason outlook for all of the AFC playoff teams, or at least 6 of the 7, in the entirety of that second hour. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans, 2 wildcard teams out of the AFC West, the Chargers and the Broncos. But now it's time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the only playoff team perhaps in the entirety of the NFL, but at least in the AFC, that will have a different starting quarterback to begin 2025 than they did to start 2024 or even midway through 2024. The Vikings also in the NFC, more than likely. At least J.J. McCarthy was in-house. I'm not sure anybody's in-house right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who is going to be the Steelers starter at the quarterback spot next season? It's a question for all of you and Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, who will be the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback next season? Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, or your fourth and final option, other? And if you did select other, we asked for a reply. And we got a couple of pretty good responses as well. Most of the public, though, DRS, 40.5% saying Justin Fields is going to be the Steelers starting quarterback to begin 2025. Donnie, are you fading the public?
Yes, I am. Did we not watch what the Pittsburgh Steelers did last year? Did you not watch when they acquired Justin Fields? And everybody's like, ooh, that could be an interesting move, only for Mike Tomlin to call every radio station on the East Coast and say, why are you making this a big deal? Yeah, we acquired Justin Fields. He's never going to play for me, and he won't be my starter. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, let's play it out how it goes in the regular season. Justin Fields takes over as the starter because Russell Wilson is injured, and Fields leads them to a winning record. And Mike Tomlin goes, yeah, we are lucky, basically, to have a winning record with this guy quarterback. He's immediately going to the bench, only to praise Russell Wilson the entire way as if he was a 7-time Super Bowl champion and can do no wrong. So now we're going into the offseason where nothing we hear from the Steelers but praise for Russell Wilson, right or wrong. But now we're led to believe that the public wants Justin Fields to be their quarterback when Mike Tomlin already told you, I can't even give this guy a 50-50 chance. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Russell Wilson the entire way through. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Steelers last year, just based off what their head coach has completely told me about Justin Fields. He's not my starter.
Mike Tomlin has been pretty adamant about that in the offseason, even with Russell Wilson during training camp, dealing with a calf injury. Well, is it an open quarterback competition? Nope. Doesn't matter what they do in the preseason. It's Russell Wilson. Well, Coach, Russ is not played or practice. How do you? Nope. Still Russ if he gets back. Oh, he's not back? Justin Fields gets off to a great start for the Steelers. Russ is back? Yeah. All right. Sit your behind on the bench, Justin. This is Russ's team. And it was great to start, and it was awful to end. Yeah. A losing skid in the regular season that, of course, carried over into the playoffs. So, Donnie, that, of course, is the big picture question for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are they going to do at the quarterback spot this offseason? Who is going to be that starting quarterback? Here is the offseason outlook for the Steelers, just to put everything in context as we did for all of the 7 playoff teams in the AFC. 10-7 record for the Steelers once again. All 18 years under Mike Tomlin, the Steelers have at least not had a losing record, have not won fewer than 8 games, and of course the RS have been a playoff team a ton in that span. But here is what I think complicates the Steelers quarterback question more than most. Neither of these guys are under contract. It's not like, we'll decide what we do in July with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields if we don't trade for somebody, if we don't draft somebody, if we don't sign somebody. Both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are free agents. The Steelers would have to actively choose, Donnie, to bring one of those guys back. I'm not so sure they are going to. But there was a conversation, DRS, you weren't here for on Friday. Turned out to be a lot of speculation. It was an interesting report from a known sports media person, Ryan Burr, who worked for the Golf Channel for many years, about the Jacksonville Jaguars receiving calls from the Steelers doing their due diligence about Trevor Lawrence's status. Basically, it's like if Donnie and I called the Jags and said, hey, is Trevor Lawrence a free agent? And they would have said, what are you talking about? Basically is how that came to it. Jacksonville is not trading Trevor Lawrence this offseason. But the Steelers are maybe making some calls around the NFL. But it did lead to some reporting from an actual NFL insider in Albert Breer, who was asked about the Steelers quarterback situation. And of course, Donnie, when one report comes out, other reporters want to be involved in all of the conjecture. And Breer did say that he has heard from some around the Steelers organization that within the actual building, they're not too fond of Russ. That they actually believe more in Justin Fields at this moment. Do you put any stake into that? And that Fields might return just because they like him a little bit more?
Here's again, like, you have to listen to some of the reporters who are tied in, but I just go with what the Steelers have told us here. And also understand this, like Mike Tomlin, which is a shame for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fan base. This was a team that was used to competing for Lombardies. Now their goal is actually just to be 500 or better. And if you're looking at Mike Tomlin, whose goal apparently is to be 500 or better every year, who gives you the best chance of going out and actually playing quarterback? Is it Russell Wilson, who didn't play very well last year, but at least he actually plays quarterback? Or is it Justin Fields, who's not going to throw the football and try to use his legs the entire way, and that's the best point of entry? Because the one thing the Steelers are at that crossroads. They're good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to win a championship. You know you can't do that unless you actually get a quarterback. How was their best, pathways to victory in the past? Drafted Terry Bradshaw, worked out pretty good in the 70s. Drafted Ben Roethlisberger, worked out pretty good in the 2000s. You're not going to win anything with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers on your roster. Is it better to say, well, we know we can't win anything. Let's just get the best veteran in here to win 9 or 10 games and make the playoffs, and then reset and wait until Mike Tomlin is either forced out or decides to leave and or retire before you tear it down? That's the issues that we're having. But for me, like, if you tell me right now, like, hey, we made our move, it's Justin Fields as our quarterback. Like, I don't know if I'm ever in on the Steelers, but I'm completely out on the Steelers at that point.
For sure. Could that be the first losing season for Mike Tomlin, or the first season with fewer than 8 victories? Perhaps. Nobody that we listed, I think, elevates the Steelers to an actual conference contender. And that's kind of the big picture question for Pittsburgh as well. Would another 9-8 season, potentially a playoff berth, but a one and done, be enough to keep Tomlin around? This Steelers team has not played in the conference championship since 2016, has not appeared in a Super Bowl since 2010. Couple of replies, by the way, for Sam Darnold. Even Matthew Stafford got his hat thrown in the ring. I guess we shall see.